The sky had turned dark far earlier than anyone expected. Thick clouds rolled over the town, and the first heavy drops of rain fell hard against the streets. By the time the boy left the small corner store with a paper bag filled with groceries for his mother, the storm had already begun. The wind howled between the buildings, sending debris across the sidewalk, and water quickly pooled along the edges of the street. The boy clutched the bag tightly in one hand and held his jacket tightly against his small frame, trying to stay as dry as he could. Every step he took splashed through the shallow puddles, soaking his sneakers, but he kept moving, thinking about getting home before the worst of the storm hit Dot as he rounded a corner. He noticed an elderly man struggling to cross the road. The man's long coat was drenched, clinging to him in the rain, and his hat had been blown sideways, leaving his face partially exposed to the storm. The boy paused for a moment, instinctively watching him. Most people would have hurried past, avoiding the problem, thinking it wasn't their business. But something inside the boy told him he couldn't just walk away. He sprinted across the slick pavement, careful not to slip, and reached the man's side. "Sir, do you need some help?" He called over the roar of the wind. The old man's eyes, wide and anxious, met his. I'm trying to get home," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "But this rain, I can't see properly." The boy offered the small umbrella he had tucked in his backpack. It wasn't much, but it helped shield the man's head from the worst of the storm. "Hold on to my arm," he said. "I'll help you across." The man hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. Carefully, they began moving across the street together. Each step required caution. Water flowed over the curbs, puddles hid uneven pavement, and the wind threatened to knock the umbrella from the boy's hand. Still, he remained steady, guiding the old man with quiet determination. As they walked, the boy noticed the man shivering. "Do you want me to help you get inside when we reach your house?" he asked. "Yes, please," the man replied, his voice weaker than the boy expected. "I'm not used to this kind of storm anymore." The boy smiled faintly, despite the circumstances. "It's okay. We'll get there," he said, speaking more to reassure himself as much as the man thought. By the time they reached the man's house, both were drenched. The boy helped him to the front door, wiping some of the rain from his face as he fumbled with the lock. Once inside, the man sank into a chair near the window, breathing heavily. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking slightly. "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't helped me." "It's nothing," the boy said, though he felt a warmth inside from hearing the gratitude. "I just didn't want you to get hurt." The old man nodded, and for a moment, there was silence except for the rain pounding against the windows. The boy looked around the modest home. It was simple, but it had character. Old photographs lined the walls, showing a man with kind eyes in his younger years, smiling with friends and family. There was a sense of life lived quietly, fully, even if it wasn't always noticed. "You have a good heart," the old man said finally, looking at the boy. "Not many young people would have done what you did tonight." The boy shrugged, a little embarrassed. I'm just me," he said softly. The old man chuckled, despite the situation. "I like that answer," he said. "Just you. Simple, honest, good." The boy stayed for a few minutes, making sure the man had settled in and had a blanket to dry off. Then, thinking about his mother and the groceries waiting at home, he said, "I should get going. My mom will be wondering where I am." The old man smiled and nodded. "Go on then. And remember, kindness like yours doesn't go unnoticed. Not by everyone, but sometimes the right people see it." The boy didn't fully understand what that meant, but he gave a small wave and headed back out into the storm. By now, the rain had intensified, soaking him to the bone. His shoes squelched with every step, and water dripped from his jacket onto the wet pavement. Yet, there was a lightness in his chest, A sense of having done something right. Most people in the neighborhood had stayed inside, watching the storm from windows. Some would remember seeing a young boy, drenched and determined, helping an elderly man navigate the rain. Most would not. But in that fleeting moment, the boy had acted without thought of reward or recognition. He had simply done what was right. By the time he reached his own apartment, he was completely soaked. His mother opened the door just as he stepped onto the porch, a look of worry and surprise on her face. "Where have you been? Are you okay?" she asked, taking in his wet clothes and dripping hair. "I helped someone," he said simply, holding out the bag of groceries. "An old man. He didn't have anyone to help him through the storm." His mother looked at him, her eyes wide with a mix of concern and pride. She didn't ask for details. She didn't scold him for being out in the rain. She simply helped him inside and began drying his hair with a towel. The boy hung up his jacket and set the groceries on the counter. Even as the storm continued outside, he felt warm and proud inside. He had acted without hesitation, without thinking about what might come next. It was a simple gesture, a small act of bravery and kindness, but in his heart, he knew it mattered. Little did he know, someone had been watching that entire scene. From a distance, a figure had seen him help the old man. A private security camera from the old man's house had captured the entire thing, from the way he offered his umbrella to how he guided the man safely inside. To most, it was just a boy helping a stranger. But to the right eyes, it meant something much more. The night wore on, and the boy went to bed exhausted from the storm and the walk. He didn't think about recognition or reward or what might happen next. He thought only about getting dry and helping his mother the next day. Outside, the storm continued, washing the streets clean and filling the night with the sound of rain on rooftops. The boy's small act of kindness had passed quietly, unnoticed by the wider world. But in the private spaces where good deeds are sometimes recorded, it had already begun to make its mark, and somewhere in that town, an old man sat by his window, smiling softly at the memory of the boy who had helped him. It was a simple thing, a walk through the storm, but it was enough to remind him that generosity and courage are not measured by age, wealth, or status. They are measured by the heart. The boy, oblivious to the future consequences of his actions, drifted into sleep, dreaming of dry floors, a warm blanket, and the quiet satisfaction of having done the right thing. In the morning, his life would begin to change in ways he could not imagine. All because he had chosen to walk one old man home in a storm. And so, the night ended as it began, in the rain. But somewhere beyond the dark clouds, a spark had been lit, ready to grow into something life-changing. The morning after the storm was calm, almost eerily so. The streets glistened with leftover rain, and puddles reflected the pale sunlight breaking through the clouds. Birds chirped tentatively, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. The boy woke slowly, stretching and yawning, the events of the previous night still vivid in his mind. He remembered the old man, the rain, the cold water soaking his shoes. Even now, his feet felt damp, and the memory of the storm sent shivers up his spine. He got out of bed quietly, careful not to wake his mother, who was still asleep in the next room. She had stayed up late the night before, concerned about him walking home in the heavy rain. The boy quickly got dressed in dry clothes, feeling a mixture of pride and exhaustion from his walk with the elderly man. It had been a small act, he told himself, nothing extraordinary, but it had felt good. He grabbed a piece of bread from the kitchen counter and was about to leave for school when he heard a knock at the door. At first, he thought it might be a neighbor or perhaps someone from the apartment office. But when he looked through the peephole, he saw two men in suits standing there. Their posture was formal, their expression serious, and their presence made his heart beat faster. His mother appeared behind him, rubbing her eyes. "Who is it?" She whispered. "I don't know," the boy replied, his voice quiet. He opened the door carefully. "Good morning," one of the men said politely. "Are you the boy who helped Mr. Thompson last night during the storm?" The boy tilted his head in confusion. "Yes." "That was me," he said slowly, unsure why this mattered. The man smiled faintly. "May we come in for a moment? We would like to speak with you and your mother." The boy stepped aside, and the men entered. They carried nothing with them except confidence, and their suits were neatly pressed, giving them the air of people who were used to being taken seriously. His mother stood behind him, her expression a mix of worry and curiosity. "Please, have a seat," one man said, gesturing toward the small living room. The boy and his mother sat down, and the men remained standing for a moment, surveying the room. "I work for a private organization that represents Mr. Thompson," the taller man began. "We were informed that you assisted him last night in the storm. He asked that we find you immediately." The boy blinked, not fully understanding. "Why?" he asked, his voice hesitant. I helped him get home. That's all." The second man spoke gently. "Mr. Thompson has seen many acts of kindness in his life, but what you did struck him as remarkable. He wishes to meet you personally." The boy's mother gasped quietly. "Mr. Thompson? The retired businessman?" she asked. "Yes," the first man confirmed. "The same. He rarely asks for anyone to be found, but he made an exception in your case." The boy's mind spun. He had walked an old man home in a storm, nothing more. Yet here were two men in suits, speaking to him as if he had done something extraordinary. "Why me?" he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "Because you showed genuine care," the second man replied. "No hesitation, no thought of reward. That is something Mr. Thompson remembers and values." The boy's mother looked at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, baby," she said softly. "You didn't even know?" The boy shook his head. "I didn't do it for that," he said. "I just didn't want him to get hurt." "Exactly," the first man said. "And that is why he wants to meet you." The mother and son exchanged a glance, a mix of disbelief and excitement. She was overwhelmed. She had raised her son with values of kindness and integrity, but she never imagined that a small act of goodness could lead to something so extraordinary. The men in suits continued, explaining that Mr. Thompson had lived a long life and seen many people come and go. He had wealth, influence, and power, but he rarely encountered someone who acted purely out of kindness without expecting anything in return. The boy had reminded him of the value of compassion, and he wanted to acknowledge it personally. The boy remained quiet, absorbing the information. His mother reached out and held his hand. She squeezed it gently, silently communicating her pride and love. One of the men handed the mother a card with an address on it. "If you are willing, we can arrange a meeting with Mr. Thompson this afternoon. He would like to thank your son personally and speak with you both." The boy looked at the card, then back at the men. We can go?" he asked, a little unsure. "Yes," the taller man said. He insisted. The mother nodded slowly. "All right, we'll go." By the time they left their apartment, the boy felt a mixture of nerves and curiosity. He had helped someone simply because it was the right thing to do. Now, that act was about to lead him to an experience he could never have imagined. The ride to Mr. Thompson's estate was quiet. The boy looked out the window at the town passing by. Puddles reflected the morning sun, and the streets seemed almost normal now. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. When they arrived, the estate was grand but not ostentatious. The gardens were perfectly maintained, and a security guard greeted them at the entrance. The men in suits led them inside, and the boy could feel the weight of the moment. Finally, They entered a large sitting room where Mr. Thompson waited. The elderly man looked frail, but his eyes were sharp and full of warmth. He smiled as soon as he saw the boy. "Thank you," he said, his voice soft but sincere. "I saw what you did last night. Not many people would have stopped in that storm. You reminded me that goodness still exists." The boy felt his cheeks flush. I just helped you get home," he said quietly. "No," Mr. Thompson said firmly. "You did more than that. You showed courage and heart. That is rare." The mother could hardly speak, tears forming in her eyes as she watched her son be recognized for an act of pure kindness. Mr. Thompson continued, explaining that he had lived a long life and experienced everything money and power could offer. But moments of genuine human compassion had always stayed with him the longest. The boy's willingness to help, without hesitation or thought of reward, had touched him deeply. He then made an offer that stunned both the boy and his mother. He wanted to support the boy's education, ensuring he had opportunities he might not otherwise have. Scholarships, tutoring, and guidance, everything he could provide to help the boy reach his potential. The mother felt overwhelmed, struggling to find words. She had always worked hard to provide for her son, but she knew their circumstances would never allow for this kind of opportunity. The boy sat quietly, trying to understand. He hadn't asked for anything, hadn't expected anything. And now, here was a man offering him a future he could never have imagined. Mr. Thompson smiled, reaching out to place a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. "You don't have to do anything except keep being kind and true to yourself. That is enough." The boy looked up, finally understanding. Sometimes, the simplest acts, the small choices to help someone, to do the right thing can lead to life-changing opportunities. He felt a mix of awe, gratitude, and humility. The men in suits remained nearby, quietly observing. They had seen many situations in their careers, but rarely something so genuine and unprompted. They could tell this moment would leave a lasting impression on everyone involved. After some conversation and introductions, the boy and his mother left the estate. The boy couldn't stop thinking about the events of the day. What had started as a normal walk home through a storm had turned into an extraordinary encounter. He felt a sense of purpose he had never known before. Not because of recognition or reward, but because he understood, even in a small way, the power of kindness. As they walked back to their apartment, the boy thought about what he would do next time someone needed help. He realized that even small acts could matter more than he ever imagined. The storm had passed, but its lessons would stay with him forever. And somewhere, watching the boy leave, Mr. Thompson smiled, knowing that in one small, quiet act of humanity, he had found a young person who reminded him of the best parts of life. It was a beginning, not just for the boy, but for everyone whose lives would touch his in the years to come. And for the boy, it was a lesson he would never forget. The right choice, even in the smallest moment, can change everything. The boy woke the next morning feeling a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. He had already experienced something extraordinary the day before, yet he could not fully process it. He went through his usual morning routine, brushing his teeth, washing his face, and having a quick breakfast. But his mind kept wandering back to Mr. Thompson. He wondered what the old man was thinking now, and whether he truly understood the impact of a small act done in the storm. His mother noticed his quiet demeanor. "You seem different this morning," she said gently. "Are you thinking about yesterday?" The boy nodded. "Yes. It feels strange. I helped him, and now everything is different." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes helping someone changes more than you expect," she said. "It changes how the world sees you, but it also changes how you see the world." By mid-morning, there was a knock at their apartment door. The boy froze for a moment, his heart skipping a beat. His mother looked toward the door and walked over carefully. When she opened it, two men in suits were standing there again. This time, their demeanor was warmer, more inviting, but still professional. "Good morning," one of them said. "May we come in?" The boy's mother stepped aside, and they entered. "We come on behalf of Mr. Thompson," the taller man explained. "He was very pleased to meet you yesterday. He has asked that we speak with you about a few opportunities and a way he would like to help you." The boy felt a knot in his stomach. "Opportunities?" he asked hesitantly. "Yes," the second man said. "Mr. Thompson was deeply touched by your kindness last night. He saw something special in how you acted without hesitation, without thought of reward, simply helping someone in need. He believes that someone with your heart should have the tools to succeed in life." His mother sat down slowly, clutching the boy's hand. "Tools to succeed?" she repeated, her voice shaky. The first man smiled gently. "Education, guidance, mentorship. Mr. Thompson wants to invest in your future. He wants to ensure that your potential is not limited by circumstance." The boy swallowed hard, trying to process what he was hearing. He had never considered that something as simple as walking an old man home could lead to anything significant. It felt surreal, almost like a dream. "We'd like to arrange a meeting with Mr. Thompson," the taller man continued. "He wants to personally explain how he hopes to support you and your family. Are you willing to meet him again?" The boy's mother nodded quickly, tears brimming in her eyes. "Of course," she said. "We would be honored." The men in suits left for a moment to make arrangements, and when they returned, they guided the boy and his mother to their black cars. The boy felt nervous as he sat in the back seat, gripping his mother's hand tightly. He had never been in such a vehicle before, and the thought of returning to Mr. Thompson's estate made him feel both anxious and excited. When they arrived, the estate looked even more impressive than the day before. The gardens were immaculate, the fountains glimmered in the sunlight, and the mansion seemed to rise from the ground with quiet authority. The boy's eyes widened at the sight, but he reminded himself that appearances were not what mattered. What mattered was the reason he had been invited back. Inside, Mr. Thompson was waiting for them in a large sunlit room. The old man rose from his chair and greeted the boy warmly. "Welcome back," he said, his eyes twinkling with kindness. "I hope you didn't have any trouble finding your way here." The boy shook his head. "No, sir," he said quietly. "It's easy to follow directions." Mr. Thompson chuckled. "Good. I want you to know that yesterday meant more to me than you might realize. You reminded me of what truly matters." The boy shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "You did," Mr. Thompson replied firmly. "Most people would have walked past or ignored the situation. You stopped. You helped. That is extraordinary. And because of that, I want to make sure your life has opportunities to grow beyond what you might expect." The boy's mother could hardly speak, overwhelmed with gratitude. She had worked tirelessly to provide for her son, but she had never imagined that one small act could lead to such generosity. Mr. Thompson continued, "I would like to sponsor your education. We can provide tutors, resources, and financial support so you can attend the schools and programs that will help you achieve your dreams. This is not charity, it is investment in someone who has shown integrity, courage, and kindness." The boy's heart raced. You would do that for me?" he asked. "Yes," Mr. Thompson said, "because what you did last night showed me that you have a rare quality. Someone like you should not be limited by circumstances beyond your control. I want to give you a chance to reach your full potential." The boy's mother placed her hands over her mouth, fighting back tears. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't need to say anything," Mr. Thompson replied. "Just accept the opportunity and continue being the young man you already are." The boy looked down at his hands, feeling a mix of disbelief, excitement, and nervousness. He had always tried to do the right thing, but he had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could lead to such a life-changing moment. The men in suits stood quietly nearby, watching the interaction unfold. They had seen many meetings like this before, but rarely with someone so genuinely humble and sincere. They understood that this moment would stay with the boy and his family for the rest of their lives. After a few minutes, Mr. Thompson handed the boy a small notebook. "I want you to keep track of your goals," he said. "Write down what you hope to achieve, and we will help you get there. Remember, talent is important, but heart is what sets people apart." The boy took the notebook carefully, almost reverently. "I will," he promised. "Good," Mr. Thompson said, smiling. "Now, let's talk about the next steps. We'll arrange tutors, mentorship programs, and school applications. You have a bright future ahead of you, and I want to help you get there." Over the next hour, the boy and his mother spoke with Mr. Thompson and his aides. They discussed the boy's interests, strengths, and dreams. The boy felt a new sense of possibility growing inside him. For the first time, he realized that his actions, simple, honest actions, could have a ripple effect far beyond what he had imagined. By the time they left the estate, the boy felt both nervous and inspired. He had been given an opportunity that many could only dream of, but he also understood that it came with responsibility. His life could change dramatically, and he needed to make the most of it. As they drove back to their apartment, the boy looked out the window at the familiar streets, now glistening under the morning sun. Everything seemed the same, yet nothing felt the same. He had glimpsed a world that existed beyond his struggles, a world where kindness and courage were recognized and rewarded. His mother squeezed his hand. "You did this," she said softly. "You didn't ask for anything, and now look at what's happening. I'm so proud of you." The boy nodded, feeling a deep sense of responsibility. I just helped him," he said quietly. "I never thought it would." That's why it's so special," she replied. "Because you acted without expectation. That is the kind of person who changes the world, one small step at a time." The boy sat quietly for a while, absorbing her words. He understood now that true kindness was never about reward or recognition. It was about seeing someone in need and acting, no matter how small the gesture. And sometimes those small gestures could lead to incredible, life-changing opportunities. By the time they arrived home, the boy felt a mixture of excitement, nervousness, and determination. He had been given a chance that few people ever receive, and he was determined to honor it. That night, as he lay in bed, he thought about the storm, the old man, and the simple act that had set everything in motion. He realized that life was full of moments like this, moments where courage, compassion, and integrity could change the course of everything. And as he drifted off to sleep, he made a silent promise to himself. He would never forget the lesson of the storm. He would continue to help, continue to care, and continue to act with a heart that was brave and true, knowing that sometimes the smallest gestures carry the greatest power. The world had already begun to open doors for him, but the boy knew that the real journey had just begun.